Welcome back. 60 years after the ratification of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, torture is still being used today. To take a closer look at this issue, I'm joined by law professor Philippe Sands. He is the author of Torture Team, Deception, Cruelty and the Compromise of Law. Welcome to the program.
Very good to be with you.
Well, as you heard there, we've been talking about the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights. I want to address one of those issues which I'd mentioned, torture, which is sometimes euphemistically referred to here in the United States as enhanced interrogation techniques. But my question is the US guilty of torture?
I tell the story of the interrogation of one man, detainee 063, Mohammed al-Qahtani, thought by the US to be the 20th hijacker of September the 11th, and I describe the circumstances in which he was interrogated over a 54-day period using 15 techniques of interrogation. And I think I pretty much unambiguously conclude that his treatment crossed the line into torture, giving rise to international crimes, whether you call them war crimes or crimes against humanity. And his case, of course, is not an isolated case. And I think there's no doubt that in relation to the detainees in Iraq, in Afghanistan, and a very small number maybe at Guantanamo, abuses of torture have occurred. And that, of course, raises some very serious issues for President-elect Barack Obama, who has already declared there will be no more torture under his administration, and he will now have to decide what to do, not only as he moves forward, but about what to do about the past.
But isn't the problem the fact that the Bush administration has in fact redefined torture? It calls it something else, so it can stand up, thump its chest and say we don't practice torture because simply what it does simply does not fall under its definition of torture.
Yeah, well, I mean, the crime of torture has been defined internationally in a way that all states have accepted, the infliction by a public official of severe physical or mental pain or suffering. And so, frankly, states are not at liberty to unilaterally redefine torture. That is what happened in the US. A couple of famous memoranda were adopted in August 2002, which did unilaterally raise the bar, raise the threshold to allow acts to take place which on a US interpretation fell short. President-elect Obama has already said that is going to stop, and I predict that on the very first day of his office, on the 21st of January 2009, new regulations will be adopted which will restore the international definition in the United States. I'm told that is very likely to happen. And I think moving forward, the days in which the United States use coercive interrogation, enhanced interrogation, whether it's on the military side or on the CIA side, because there were two streams here, will come to an end. I think that is a good thing. I think the US will return to its rightful position and will then be able to point the finger at others. Very difficult to do that if you yourself are engaging in these activities. But again, it comes back to a very big question. One of your callers asked the question, what about accountability? And Mr. Obama is going to have to decide what to do. Does he initiate criminal investigations for what has happened in the past? Or does he do nothing? Or does he find some sort of middle ground, a sort of bipartisan, blue-ribboned commission, which will seek out the facts and in due course decide what to do? And these are very tough choices for any new president coming into office in any country.
Well, so far, the textbook on interrogation, if I could call it that, is here in the United States, is the Army Manual on Interrogation, which has been embraced by the military. But so far, under the Bush administration, the civilian security agencies have not been compelled to follow that Army Manual. Under Barack Obama, will we see all agencies fall under the prescription that that manual has?
Yeah, I think it's likely that we will. The US military has already reconnected to the standards in the field manual, which are fully consistent with the Geneva Conventions and with international law. You may remember that Congress voted to apply those standards also to the CIA. The legislation passed through Congress, both houses, and President Bush then vetoed it. In fact, interestingly, Senator McCain voted against that legislation. I think that will now be revisited and it will come back. And once that has happened, I think the way will be clear for the United States to again focus its attention on others. I mean, it's very difficult to go around lecturing others on human rights abuses when you yourself have fallen into error. There is, of course, no exception which justifies the use of torture in any circumstances. And so the argument that the United States somehow faced an appalling situation, and of course the consequences of September the 11th were appalling, did not justify the use of abusive techniques of interrogation. We also know, and this is very problematic, that the authorization of these techniques of interrogation didn't begin down on the ground, so to speak. They came from the very top, from Mr. Rumsfeld's office, with the support of the Vice President, and apparently also with the personal support of the President of the United States. So it raises the most fundamental issues, but I'm reasonably confident that President-elect Obama, when he takes office, will immediately bring an end to all of this. That, as a friend of mine said, though, is the easy part of the equation. The difficult part is what to do about what has happened in the past, and relatedly, since it's been in the news today, what to do about the military commissions. These proceedings in which people like Khalid Sheikh Mohammed are currently being tried. My sense is that the US military is strongly opposed to the use of these military commissions, as they were, it's important to say, strongly opposed to the use of torture. This was a politically imposed decision. It was not supported by the military.
Which brings me to an email. It's an issue that you have already raised, but this is from Sydney in Australia. It's from S. Anoma, and the email reads, after a decade of the Bush doctrine, can the US claim any superiority over other nations on the area of individual rights and freedoms? It seems it cannot even claim to provide its own citizens social and economic rights.
No, it's a very powerful point. And you know, I mean, I had a conversation a couple of years back with a senior Bush administration official. And I said to him, you know, if you are using waterboarding on some of these detainees, what is your authority to stop the use of waterboarding against American nationals when they are detained abroad? And of course, your authority to stop others from doing this just collapses completely. And it's an argument that many senior US military uniformed officials put to the administration, and they were overridden by political appointees and by the senior members of the administration. I think, in fact, and we've seen this with the reaction to the election of President-elect Obama, that the people will cut the US a lot of slack. I think a lot of people want the US batting for human rights again, and provided they don't just try to sweep everything that has happened under the carpet, but find some form of accountability. And that need not be criminal investigations. It can be truth and reconciliation.
Okay, Professor Stans,
I think the US will come back.
Thank you. We're going to have to leave it there, sir. Thank you for joining us. And thank you for watching. On the next show, we discuss relations between India and Pakistan in the wake of the Mumbai terror attacks. That's all from me and the team. See you next time.